Welcome, Nicki. Welcome to this discussion around people pleasing. Welcome to all the audience and people who are watching today. I have invited my really good friend, my soul sister, Pilates instructor, breathwork facilitator, and just downright absolute truth bomb speaker ever. No bullshit. This is Nicki Strugnall of Expand with Nicki.
Thank you, darling. What an intro.
Yeah.
All very true. So it's great.
I've been thinking about it. I'm like, this chick, I'm really excited about where we're going to go with this conversation. We have many talks about the behaviors of people pleasing, because I know myself, I'm recovering people pleaser, and that's a habit of mine that I always kind of go to, and you're always the one that pulls me back and pulls me out of that habit. And we have so many great combos, and I always just say, we need to get this out there. We need to record this. So here we are.
Yeah, pretty much most of our combos, you're like, oh gosh, you need to put this in an interview or a podcast or a video.
Yeah.
I'm like, for sure.
So I guess, so we're going to be talking about people pleasing. We're going to be talking about the attitudes and behaviors, the emotions that come from people pleasing, and then knowing that you've gone too far into people pleasing, and then those emotions that come out afterwards, and then how we can try and implement new behaviors and new habits to just step out of that and actually understand why you're doing it in the first place, to help you understand then what needs to change. So I'd love to know about your history of what you've learned.
Oh, for sure. Oh my goodness. This is such a big topic. People pleasing and boundaries is so huge. And it's a topic I talk to so much with clients and women, especially because we are so often conditioned as the good girl. It is so rife in our society. And, which is quite often a trauma response. People pleasing, in my experience, is a trauma response. It's where you do not feel safe to be fully expressed in that moment. You don't feel safe to feel what's real for you, because for whatever reason, and for me, it was I never had a healthy example of what negative emotions are. So angry, I guess sadness, really feeling that. I never had a healthy example of that growing up. So it was like, oh, don't feel that. Okay, well, I must be a good girl. I must just keep those emotions to myself because I don't want to create pain, in the family, or mainly to my parents. And that's all unconscious. There's no, it's really all programmed very, very young. And that's the thing. It was never like I've always been happy, positive, love my life sort of girl, but I wasn't real. I wasn't authentic. That's completely different things, right? So this is the thing. We think, oh, I'm a nice person, I'm positive, but that's great. You can't be that all the time. That's not really it. I was 1,000% that person until, honestly, I was 28. And that is when I think the real journey started. When I was 24, I'll give you a little story. So I was dating this guy, and I remember, like, we were having a chat about whatever it was. We were just dating. We weren't in a relationship in that sort of committed container. So I think he may have gone and connected with someone else. And he had told me, and I remember just going, oh, okay, like, yeah, just, being really like, okay, yeah, no worries, like, understandable. Like, we weren't in a committed relationship. That's fine. That's fine, right? That is a statement that, wow, is so often said a lot. And once again, that's a protection coping mechanism. And I remember he said to me, he goes, oh God, this absolute penny dropper. He goes, hey, Nick, you can get angry. And I was like, And he was like, just get angry. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you don't have to be understanding all the time. And honestly, the biggest bomb, I couldn't believe this moment. And he just gave me permission, because I'd never given myself permission to feel that emotion. It wasn't safe, right? And I literally, I remember going, hang on, what? And then I just went, yep, you know what? This is bullshit. And I just edited him, and he loved it. He was like, thank you, that's real. And then that moment onwards, honestly, absolutely set me on a trajectory of, oh, wow, Nick, you've got work to do. You have work to do to stop being understanding, loving, happy person. Not happy as in absolutely cultivate that, but let's be real and not suppress. So that set me on a big journey of, you know, lots of personal development, lots of like reading and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't until 28 onwards, coming out of a really big breakup, that I started really tuning in with deep sort of shadow work, but actually it's just deep reflective work on all of who I was, like all this deep suppressed sadness, anger, rage that was in my heart that I have never let go. I've never let it out because I never felt safe to, but I certainly went on the journey too.
Oh, all of that speaks so much to me. And I'm just getting this visual of like this smile that happens when you're not happy at all, and you're like, your all breath is up here, you're holding your belly, like you're sucking everything up, and you're just stiff as a board, and just like, because you're holding everything in, right? You're holding all of the emotion in, and all of your energetic body is just like squeezing it into something. So like you're squeezing all of that resentment, all of that anger, all of that grief or sadness, whatever it feels in that moment, just like squeezing it into like a tissue or a shoulder or your organ or something like that, and stopping the breath.
And with exactly that, Erin, is like when you're in these times where you're like, and you have this tension, you're having an uncomfortable conversation, or someone's saying something to you, and you're not saying what's real for you in that moment. Like tune in with the body. Like where do you feel the tension in the body? Like what's happening with your breath? Like actually take a moment to bring awareness to that, because I know for me, always my left side, my neck and shoulder, helps to just start doing this straight away, unconsciously, you know? And there's so much tension. I don't have that anymore. It's wild. I started just releasing all this emotion, this stuck emotion, and all these blocks, you know, that I really, really had in my body. It was wild.
Yeah, it's mad how it represents and presents itself physically, and that's one great way we can start to do the work and start to go, okay, this is where I can start physically, and then you start keep going in and deeper into the layers until you become like a really great observer. And that's what I love when I always hear people when they share with me, when they just share with me an observation that they had about their process, because it's like amazing. The 80% of the work is in the awareness, right? And I remember hearing that when I was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and just being like, you know, you've got the awareness now, and you have the awareness, it still feels shit because it's still uncomfortable. So I'm like, damn it, like success is 80% of like, you know, the awareness, but it's like, well, yeah, now you're actually aware of the discomfort you're feeling in the moment. And now we can start to make changes. Now we can choose the path.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And that's it. It's uncomfortable. This is the thing. We avoid being uncomfortable, and especially people pleasing. That's why we're people pleasers, because we do not want to feel what is real in this moment. And, you know, that's the journey that I really chose to go on from 28 onwards. I realized I wasn't an active listener, because I was so in like coping all the time that I actually just, like, I was just thinking about the next thing to say, or, you know, I wasn't actually wasn't an active listener, wasn't I realized I had never properly spoken my truth. I had so much work, real work to do at speaking my truth, which is once again a massive block, which people pleasing, you don't actually really say what you want to say because you're so attached to the outcome. There's so much fear around the outcome, and also being uncomfortable. It's like getting, learning to be comfortable with uncomfortable. We hear that, but it really is imperative. It's actually, but then it becomes such a okay thing because you're okay with yourself. You're okay that I used to have this mantra like from say 27, 28 onwards, when I started really absolutely non-negotiable. I was speaking my truth. It was fully my mission, my challenge at that time for years. And I would say, I would take a deep breath and I'd go, I'm so uncomfortable, but I'm going to say this anyway. No matter what, I'm going to speak my truth in this moment. And I don't mean rah, 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 speak my truth. It's learning to communicate, actually learning to reframe a conversation. I used to just go, I would just name it. I'm so uncomfortable right now, but I really need to share this with you.
Yeah.
Or it's, you know what, my ego is really flaring up. Like I'm feeling insecure. I need to share this with you.
Yeah.
It's actually knowing it's not about them. It's actually about you and my stuff coming up, for example. And I would feel sick, like literally just be like, and every time that resistance kicked in, that block, I knew I had to say, I knew I had to lean into that every time. And that's all I can encourage people to do is every time, that comes up. And people will respect you and love you on a whole nother level with boundaries around speaking your truth, because people know how to show up with you. They don't question your authenticity. They can connect with you because it's real. It's not like the smiling assassin, the good girl mask. It's so like just not real. It's not real, and it's so hard to connect with. I mean, I literally get it. I literally was that, and I still work on that all the time. I love giving. I'm such a giver, and I also have been hammered in that as well, giving too much. So that's all boundary stuff. But it's huge. It's really huge. And to speak the truth is a massive part of boundaries and people pleasing, for sure.
There's so much I want to unpack in this because I've been thinking about so much while you talk to me. And I friggin' love this because I'm so lucky because I get to speak to you all the time and you remind me about this all the time. Because I almost want to break this down into stages of like, so where do we need to start from first? First, it's okay. So we've now got the awareness that where we might be doing that smile or that holding the breath, or we're getting that pain or that uncomfortable feeling. And so that is the very first, and congratulations, feeling that, oh, yeah, I'm uncomfortable. And then the second thing, but maybe that comes before the first thing, is actually making a commitment and setting this intention of like, this is the work I'm going to do now. This is what I know is going to happen. I'm going to get uncomfortable and I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I'm sure there's going to be some clunky parts along the way of trying to communicate what you're actually